Hello, good morning. As they say, my thought for the day. Given it a lot of thought, I've had correspondence with a number of other bloggers talking in broad terms about what went on with, or has happened with, Randy and Rose. And it's not a case of flogging a dead horse, so to speak. It's just simply more thoughts for the day. I'm just pulling out some grass that's in the way. You know, about a week or so ago on the local GM news channel, there was a interesting piece about surrogacy. The main thing about it is that it makes you think. There's obviously for women there is a biological clock always ticking. When I say always, maybe sometimes they're beyond that point. In other words, they've just resigned to the reality that they're never going to have children. And for those that understand the Philippine way, especially here, would understand the driving need that so many young Filipinas need. I liken it sometimes to, if your childhood is full of emptiness of love and people are so busy trying to feed each other and feed the rest of the family that the size of families often has an effect on individual siblings, and therefore, as a result, there may well be a situation where the young lady grows up feeling maybe not quite as loved as they might want to, a feeling of why not me? And that leaves a certain emptiness in anybody if you're not loved. If you're not loved, there's something clearly missing in your life. Yes, we can get through it each day, but inevitably what happens is that yearning for love often is translated into wanting to have a child, something that will give you the love that you're looking for, a love of a child to its mother. Maybe a bit like in the West saying, I won't let that happen to me. And I suppose really in many cases, what we might call surrogacy, Philippine style, is really the only answer. And of course, one gets into the area then that is it right or is it wrong? Sure, you're in a relationship. If it hasn't been discussed between you and your partner, but you've just taken the action yourself, and clearly that is a shock, and in many cases the end of a relationship. But if you have discussed it, I suppose in many ways it's then down to costs. In the West you have all these systems set up where it becomes illegal becomes a legal issue whether the money that you're giving the woman that's carrying your child has sufficient to cover the pregnancy. But that issue doesn't come in the Philippines. It's a case of maybe a few one-night stands and constantly checking to see if you become pregnant. It's not about love, it's about wanting the desire to have children. Many of us old folk, doddery old men that come here to the Philippines have to also realise that for many of us, maybe our sperm count isn't sufficient to provide your partner with a girl or a boy, a little child. And of course, what would you do in that case? I mean, I know Americans that have, in effect, unofficially adopted children into their little family unit. And it does work. It's often a child that would be otherwise disadvantaged, would be living a horrendous lifestyle. And they take that child into their hearts and their home. And they effectively adopt the child as if it were their own. Of course, for the women out there who've experienced some of these things, nothing replaces the feeling of bearing on or bearing the child herself. So if you've born the child, you've carried the child, and you've ended up producing a child, that's almost like, one might say, God's work. It's nature. That's what we're on this planet for. We're not here to look at each other and touch each other. We're here to procreate, to have progeny to follow us after we're gone. I mean, when I came here, I never thought about contraceptive. I never thought about any of that. I thought, well, if it happens, it happens. And I suppose, and I'm saying it from my point of view, it was probably the best in the end, because even though my partner at the time showed interest in having a child, and there's no doubt that every month there may well have been a wish to suddenly discover the one was pregnant, but that's in that honeymoon stage when I suppose we threw caution to the wind. But with the benefit of hindsight, would that child have been better off now? Don't know. But for those younger ones, the younger women, who clearly want to have a child, at least one, you'll find many of them want more than one. They want one of each. And with the many tragic accidents that happen in their teens and on, of course, it's a hedge against tragedy as well by having more than one. But we're moving away from the subject, and that is that whilst it may shock us to discover the journey that Rose and Randy have had, there are a few out there that suggest that I'm somehow condoning their behaviour. And I'm saying their behaviour because both of them were involved in some way or other. Not necessarily pointing the finger at either, but things have happened. I believe they're very brave to have put it out there. I mean, they were inevitably going to have the derogatory comments in effect aimed mainly at Rose, but also cruelly at Randy, as if he's some sort of half-breed that can't make his own mind up. Who are we to say that, as we're not walking in their shoes, how are we able to really decide whether our behaviour is the right behaviour or not? I mean, there was a time that they probably were very close. I think all of us at one point have been close to our partner. But not everything works, and it's nothing to do with the Philippines. A lot of it can be put down to the fact that maybe we don't really, truly, or never will understand the workings of the culture here. It is quite a minefield to work your way through. And I mean, I've been here 10 years, and if I was to say that I understand Filipina, I'd be lying. I've experienced many situations whilst being here that have really no answer, that don't have the opportunity for me to really put common sense together and work it all out, because it's so complicated. Jealousy, mood changes, just complete opposites of what we would call logic at play there. But the thing is that when we come to the Philippines, why did we come here in the first place? We came here mainly for economic reasons, an opportunity to get off the rat race, to experience living in the tropics, and realizing that we can survive here, and it makes a great place to put a line under our own lives, to have achieved something more than just existed as an old age pensioner somewhere at some time in Europe or North America or Australasia. So guys, don't be so critical of situations that you all wish to find out. I know there's a desire to relish the flavour of a bit of drama and a bit of intrigue. But just realise that sometimes the stories that others tell, there's more to what you see that they won't tell you. And it's for you to understand that we're all different. We all react differently. We're not on this planet just to constantly pull each other apart. Let's all at least learn, maybe, from some of the things that many of us have experienced and discovered. Because a relationship with a Filipina will certainly be a big learning curve. So with the learning curve at the forefront of my thoughts, I suppose I'll go back and have some eggs on toast maybe, and a nice hot coffee. And I hope that you, in the meantime, have enjoyed my talk for today. Bye now.